Hi boys and girls, I'm going to walk you through an overlapping fall leaf project. We're going to use watercolor for this project, and this is what we're doing right now in 4th grade. So to start out, we need to create a leaf stencil. So we're going to create our own tracer. So what you're going to need for this is you're going to need a piece of heavy-duty cardboard, not necessarily super heavy-duty, but just enough that you can trace it over and over again. And that could be from a cardboard box you're recycling. It could be any heavy-duty paper that you have laying around is fine. We just want it to be a little bit more sturdy than your regular paper. You're going to need scissors. You're going to need a black crayon. You're going to need a pencil, of course. And then you're going to need a paper that can stand up to a little bit of watercolor. Okay, so something a little bit thicker if you have watercolor paper. If you just have drawing paper, that's fine too. And then you're going to need watercolors. And then some water and a brush. So to start this project, you want to think about the shapes of leaves. So I hand out this template to the kiddos so that we can take a look at different types of leaves. And we usually explore some leaves that we have brought into the classroom for fall time. And you can grab those from outside. I also have a template that looks like this. So what we're thinking about is that outside line. We want to draw on our stencil paper. We want to create a leaf with an interesting contour line. So I'm going to start out by drawing a oak leaf. And then I'm going to use that as my tracer. I tell the kiddos that we want to make sure you do your stem a little bit wider than just a line. Okay, you want it to be more of a shape so that when you cut out, it doesn't break. So I've got my leaf. I made my stem a little bit thicker so that when I cut it out, which I'm going to do now, that I will have, I won't have like a flimsy, skinny little stem. I know that leaf stems are normally a little bit thinner than this, but I want to exaggerate it so that when I trace it over and over again, it doesn't get bent or broken, and I can still use it repeatedly. So we've got our watercolor paper. I'm working on cutting out my stencil, and the next step is going to be to trace out your stencil overlapping onto each other. So you want to trace it out at least like 5 or 6 times on your paper so that you show that overlapping. So I've got my tracer. So you can see the overlapping here. So we're going to talk a little bit about like what lines do we erase to show that overlapping. So let me just trace out a couple of leaves here and then we can talk about that. So I'm just working my pencil around my leaf stencil that I created. I've got it drawn out one time, and now I'm going to do a little overlapping. I'm going to place my tracer right on top of that drawing, and I'm going to trace it again. And last year we did this with our crayon project when we did the tracer with the crayons, and we talked a little bit about overlapping. So this is a little bit of a review. So now I've got to decide if I want this leaf on top of this leaf. I'm going to erase out this inside line. So whichever you want on top, you're going to have to do a little erasing. So you might want to draw lightly so that you can erase it out and it won't be showing. So now I can show that I've got this leaf on top of this leaf. So that's the overlapping that we want to show. Once all of your leaves are traced out in pencil, you're going to move on to outlining your leaf lines with a black crayon so that we can do that watercolor resist with the black crayon. Okay, so I've got all of my leaves traced out, and I'm showing that overlapping in a few spaces. And then I went in and added the veins of my leaf, those lines that go in between, so you can always add those after. Now we're going to talk a little bit about color. So on the inside of our leaves, we're going to use those warm colors, right? The red, yellow, and oranges. So if we look at our color wheel, and we cut that color wheel in half, going this way. You've got your warm colors over here. You've got your orange, your red, and your yellow. And then on the other side of the color wheel, we have your purple, blue, and green. And those colors are going to go in your background, okay? So with your watercolors, I would work on one first so you don't have to keep changing up your water if your water gets dirty. So if you remember, we're going to tickle awake the colors that we want to use. So we're going to add some water. And then we're going to tickle the color. I'm going to pick orange first, so I've loaded up my brush, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to add that color inside my leaves. And you can change it up as many times as you want to, because all those fall colors, they can be, one leaf could have 3 or 4 colors in it, right? So this is your chance to be creative with your leaves. So you can keep changing your color, rinsing your brush in between, and adding all that beautiful, vibrant, warm colors to your leaves. And those waxy bits are going to keep it from going into the other leaf. So where you've got the wax crayon, it'll hold that color in place. So you're going to want to fill in all of your leaves with those warm colors. And you guys can have fun with this. You can practice doing a wet on wet technique where you use wet watercolor inside your leaf, and then you go in with another color while it's wet, and the colors will kind of mix together and creates a really pretty design. So you can try that. You can try watercolor just on the dry paper, and then go in. You could lay down a trail of water, just plain water, and then drop in some colors and watch them kind of move around. So you guys can have fun with that. Then you're going to switch over to your cool colors for your background, and it's going to look a little something like this. Now, if you wanted to kick it up a notch, if you notice in this example, can you see this texture that I've created in the background? That texture is created by, when the watercolor is still wet, if you take a little bit of table salt, just the salt that you would put on like your French fries or something like that, and while the paint is wet, you want to sprinkle a little bit of the salt where those pools of water are, and then when you let your paper to sit to dry, when you go back to it, you brush off the salt, and it leaves this wonderful little kind of snowflake texture. So that's something that you could try in your background. This example has that texture in the background, but this example does not. So you can see that any way you do it, it's going to be beautiful. So have fun, review those warm and cool colors and that overlapping. And if you want to share some pictures with me of your work, I'd love to see them. I miss you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.